Hey folks, this is Nick with Kognitos. I'm here today to walk you through the Kognitos platform. So, starting off at the top right, we have departments. And departments, this concept is important because we separate processes by department. We want to make sure that finance stays in finance, customer service stays in customer service, so on and so forth. Um, you can have users who traverse these departments or are separated and stuck with just that specific department. Either way is completely fine. You do have complete control over the names of those departments as well. Now that I've talked about how departments function, let's go over to the dashboard on the left-hand side of our nav bar. And so here, the dashboard is showing you what's happening in this department. In this case, the finance and accounting department. And so here, each one of these is a different process that's been automated. And as you can see, only one has actually been run recently. This is a demo environment, and there is one exception, and one that needs attention. This is telling you high level what's happening within this department, so that you can understand if there are any automations that need attention. And then from the dashboard, we're going to go into the playground. And so the playground, what we're going to do here, this is where you start creating an automation. So you can go here and go to a template, click one of these, and it'll conjure a completely new playground if you like. That's something that we can have that we absolutely have available to you. At the same time, you can go back to the playgrounds and just create your own new playground, right? And so from here, what you can do, you can start from complete scratch. You can do something as simple as 1 plus 1, and then go ahead and hit run, and it'll give you the answer. And once you're done with that, and want to get a little fancier, you can do things like calling out to GPT-4o Mini and ask who won the World Series in 2016. And I've already sent that off, and the answer has already come back. And in case you forgot, it was the Chicago Cubs. So So simple, complex, and everything in between, we can handle it in a number of different ways. Once you're ready to go with this, you'll go ahead and create process, and you should give it a name to do something. We do enforce a naming convention so that you can call this in plain English later on from another process. And in future videos, you'll see exactly what I mean by that. But for right now, let's go ahead and hit cancel and flip over to the processes tab. So in processes, you're going to see everything that I've published within this department. Published means that it's already gone through the vetting process, and so it's ready to go. It's in production. And if I click down the down arrow here, I can see how many exceptions have occurred. I haven't been using this environment much, so you see that there's not many exceptions, but you can see some completed here and there. Oh, I guess not. Sorry. So let me go ahead and go into this process. You'll see it's written in plain English. From here, I can go to the little three dots over here. I can see the process flow. This will give me a more visual representation of the process flow. And if I click this, it'll kind of magnify it so you can see exactly what's happening here. I don't want to get into the nuts and bolts of the process itself right now. Just know that you can kick it off by an email. You can also schedule it. You can also kick it off via API. So there's a number of different ways that we can start this process up. Now, there's a lot more to be said about the processes tab. But for right now, let's move on to exceptions. So in the exceptions screen, what you're going to see is any exceptions that have been encountered within this department for these processes. Here you see there is an exception and with saying, please provide the scanned documents first payment numbers. And so there's something, it's hit an exception, it's looking for that payment ID. What I can do is I can highlight that ID, and our platform will pick it up and populate it there. Or we can teach it a technique so that we can use that in a learning for future reference, so that if we hit this exception again, it'll automatically handle it. Speaking of, all of those learnings are stored in the learning section under the learning on the nav bar on the left hand side. And if I click in here, we're going to see all of the learnings for the entire department sorted by process. And so all this information is pinned to a context-based learning embedding within the bounds of Kognitos, as a fancy term for saying if we see something that looks similar, we're going to apply that learning automatically so that you have better straight-through processing. So those are the learnings. And then books, very, very briefly, we're going to go over books. Books are essentially integrations with other applications. So we have things like document processing. This is actually a call out to text extract. Email is a native SMTP, native email integration. And then Excel is not actually, it's an integration with the application of Excel. But not an actual call out to like a third-party API. Whereas Oracle Cloud Fusion, that's actually a call out to an API. And so some of these will require that you fill out credentials and authentication information. Some of them will not, like with the Excel and with the PII processing, no authentication required. So we can just add those as needed. And then lastly, second to lastly, we have the history button, which is going to show you everything that's transpired within this department when processes were published, so that you can revert if need be. So that's all here as well. And then lastly, I do want to show you down here, we have this, we have our our help agent, right? And so the help agent is really, really useful. It does indeed, it is backed by our support team, but we do have artificial intelligence in front of our support team just so that you can get the best service possible. And so you can ask things like, how can I create a table, right? And it's going to give you an example of how you create a table using Kognitos. And not only is it going to give you an example, it's also going to point you to the documentation that supports that example, because this solution is actually going through our documentation and finding the right answer for you, so that you can not only get your answer, but also have a reference to see exactly where that information came from in case you have further questions surrounding your first question. Right, so hopefully this has been a helpful overview of Kognitos, and I look forward to any questions that you have regarding it. Thanks, and have a great day.